Hi everyone, I'm Brent with VenomPads.com giving a blade doctor talk on miter cutting. Over the past 20 years, I've cut in so many different shops on so many different saws, different materials, situations where not only do I have to miter cut, I also have to straight cut. So for me as the blade doctor, I usually will choose a blade that can miter cut and straight cut really well. To go in further detail, I will start by explaining how blades work. First of all, a blade cuts three ways, either straight, horizontally, and on a miter. The science behind making a blade cut horizontally is not the same as cutting straight. So what I have here is an example of what's called a split cutting blade. It's a blade that's designed to go this way, to cut material this way. Now, you'll see in the details of this that a splitting blade has a wide segment, and so the design of cutting on an angle is completely straight. Horizontal is completely a different algorithm of making blades. So we're not cutting this way, we're cutting this way. So now when we're cutting on an angle, the science between a regular blade that cuts straight and a blade that cuts horizontal comes in the middle because it's a combination on both sides. Now, a segment wears two ways, up and down and left to right or right to left, width and height. So when the more a blade's going this way, the more you're wearing out the sides of the blade than the height. So I'm going to give a little rundown of all these blades because I've used them all in different situations. My first choices versus the other ones, and all the blades here pretty much work on everything with straight cutting and miter cutting, but I'll give you the strengths and weaknesses why I choose one over the other. So let's start. I'm going to first start with the brand SV, the Euro symbol EB. This is by far my favorite factory and for all my cutting, and that's why I push it on VenomPads.com. If I'm at a shop and my life depends on cutting their very expensive material, I have to choose the right blade. And a lot of these shops, I'm there for the first time, they're cutting a material that's very expensive, and we're all like, please, let's get this straight. So my go-to blades are always going to be the SVE blades made in Italy. They're always my go-to blades, so I'm going to start explaining them before I explain the other ones that I sell and I've used. So first of all, we got here, this is an 18-inch marble blade. So this segment here isn't more than 8 millimeters. So right off the bat, if you're just cutting marble, this is going to cut all your material, all your marble, perfect, straight, and on miters. Because the height of this isn't that tall, so you're going to get the full life of the blade cutting straights and miters. It's a phenomenal marble blade for straight cutting and miter would be this blade. So if I'm cutting marble, and whether I'm straight cutting marble or miter cutting marble, I always throw on SVB blade for marble. Now we have, this is just standard. Not too many guys buy granite segments anymore, but if you really want just a good granite, if you're cutting granite all the time and you just want a really great granite blade, which doesn't tend to be the market anymore, I just have it here for the video. This is a 20 millimeter. And if you're just cutting granite all the time, you know, it's a great choice blade. Since it's 20 millimeters, I don't really do miters with it, but in a pinch, if I'm using this blade and they're using a granite blade, depending on how many miters I'm doing with straight cuts, this will still work fine. You don't have to overthink it. This will do miters and straight. But if you're going to be doing predominantly a lot of the miters with granite, we'll go to some other choices. This I use a lot. I'm going to tell you why. This is an SVB blade, 15 millimeter. All right, what I like about this segment is this is a faster cutting segment than the 20 millimeter. Even though it's 15 and this is 20, it's not the same segment. This is a faster cutting matrix than the 20. This matrix here is made for quartz and quartzite. So it does work on granite, no problem. It'll cut it really fast. You'll have a longer life. If you're cutting a lot of granite, the granite segments will last longer, but not cut necessarily as fast. So this one I use a lot. If I'm cutting Taj Mahal, a lot of different quartzites, granites, even marble. I'll sometimes use this for everything, depending on the circumstance I'm cutting in. So this one, since it's 15 millimeters, you're going to have plenty. I haven't had any problems straight cutting and mitering between the jobs with these, because it is 15 millimeters. So you're going to get the wear pretty good, where you're not going to overwear the side wall at the same as the height. And which brings me to the next blade, the split segment. Now this is a blade, I always call it the bone crusher. This was the original one I did on social media years ago, where I was cutting quartzite, and it's basically a split segment. So it is exactly this segment that's 15. They just take a machine in Italy and they split it, and they weld it separately wider. Even though this is the same segment, when they split it and separate the distance, it creates it to cut faster, because it clears out the sludge that gets caught in the granite. So since it clears it out faster, the waste, it cuts faster. So if you're doing a lot of quartzite and you want to cut faster, then this one, you use this one. And once again, since it's the same segment, I can miter cut and straight cut with it. I find that the SVB blades use really good quality cores. The construction on the cores are really strong and stable. Another reason it has to do with cutting good miters is the core quality. So, you know, if I'm cutting quartzite where I just get the choice to cut quartzite, I'm going to choose this blade. Hands down, I'm going to use this blade for straight cutting and mitering. And for just cutting grants and quartz and granite, I put that one on. Even though it's the same segment, just a different design. Like if you have a choice of two blades, quartzite, if you want a blade that can straight cut and miter cut all your materials, I go with these two. All right, the last two blades I'm going to show you has to do with all I call cutting the weird stuff. Nanoglass, porcelain, dectin, neolith, you name it. Whatever the new stuff is, the Blade Doctor's blade of choice of any kind of, let's just call it weird material. Compact surfaces, nanoglass, is the SVB. It's labeled as the porcelain blade, but that's a broad name now. So this is the blade that if I'm cutting dectin, any kind of new material to porcelain, I use this. The exception is nanoglass, which I'm going to get to in a second. This is a 10 millimeter segment, so your miter cutting and straight cutting, I've never had a problem where it couldn't do both. No, great. So once again, this is the one where if you've ever seen videos of me cutting dectin and everything, it's this one. And once again, all the SVB blades that I have on venompads.com, I have referred to all of them as the Bone Crusher series blades, but it originally came from the quartzite one. If I have to associate it to one of the ones in particular, it would be the quartzite. Okay, now, nanoglass. I've designed this blade actually for Glassos, which is a brand of nanoglass. Man, they've been using this blade well over probably 16, 17, no, longer than that. I think ever since they came around in Jersey, about 20 years. And I kept developing it more and more fine-tuned for what they were doing. So here we have it. Venom Rush. And with the Venom Rush, I was able to get, I have 10 and 15, but I found the 15 still did the job, so I find the 15s you might as well go with for the little extra height. All right, with this blade, any kind of Glassos or nanoglass is the #1 blade. I just don't even think about the other blades. Nanoglass, I put this on. There's nothing to even think about. Just nanoglass, use Venom Rush. But that being said, I have shops that use this blade on everything. Marble, quartzite, granite, engineered stone, you name it, and they do straight cut and miter cut on all materials, even marble. It's really a good general all-around blade too. But to fine-tune it, I would say the number one two strengths this blade has is nano glass, hands down, a number 10 off the charts for cutting, and also the engineered stone, the engineered quartz. Engineered quartz and nano glass, this blade hits it out of the park every time on straight and miter cutting. And of course, granite, it does great on. And then, like I said, some guys are still using this on the marble. Quartzite, you know, on quartzite, I would say, compared to the split seg bone crusher, the bone crusher is a 10 for me for quartzite. To me, I don't find any blade better than the bone crusher split seg, which is a 10 for me in performance on straight cutting and miter cutting and the speeds I like. This comes around a level 4 in the speed of the bone crusher, but the effectiveness of the quality of cut is fantastic. Okay, so those were all the Blade Doctor blades of choice whenever I have to cut at a shop. It's kind of like golf. The more clubs you have in a bag, the more you can use if you know how to use them. But at times I can compromise and know how to, if I'm in a situation where I just need to use one blade for the majority of the time, I do know how to do it. All right, so now the other blades for straight cutting and miter cutting. Here we go. And this is in no particular order. This is one of my new blades. I'm a big fan of this. It's called the Venom Experience Gray Blade. I kind of did this more for the Sasso K600s because I had a lot of customers with K600s at the time period. And even though it was for the K600, it works on all the other saws. All right, so this is kind of the split segment idea, but it's 20 millimeter, not 15, and I call this an exception to the rule. Even though it's 20 millimeters, you'll still get a long life out of miter cutting with it as well as straight cutting. This particular one was for quartzite. This was a quartzite straight cut miter cut blade that happened to break the rules. I got up to 20 millimeter on it, but with that, it still does quartz. Like if you just want a really fast cutting quartz blade that can straight cut, miter cut, especially on the saw jets or any of the robotic saws, it's great. It's technically a quartzite blade for straight cutting and mitering, but that, like I said, even though it's a quartzite type blade, you'll still can throw it on for quartz and quartzite. For quartz, some guys just use it for quartz all day too because it's a very fast cutting blade. So that's what the Venom Experience blade is in gray. I have this in gray and white. The white's a bigger segment, which I don't have here. I'm out of stock on them, but it's like the it's very similar to the Fat Boy, which we're going to get to. So this blade is 25 millimeters, which is, I have customers have been using this blade for years. They're using it on quartzite, granite, and quartz. Even though it's not a quartzite blade, they still get a really good results using quartzite on it. They don't like taking it off, and it's not even close to a miter blade. It's 26 millimeters. But I do have shops that will still kind of use it for a few miter cuts here and there. They don't go too crazy with a lot of miter cuts, and they're like, you know, Brent, it still works great. They haven't worn out the sidewalls, but if you're gonna do, if you're gonna really do a bunch of miters, I wouldn't really recommend that. It's strictly for your straight cutting, but it is a great all-around workhorse on quartz, quartzite, and granite. This blade is very similar. So if you're at a shop and you want a quartzite blade that runs similar to the Fat Boy, but for quartzite, go with this. I have a lot of customers that use this, and they want something a little bit more faster, a little bit more geared for quartzite. Just go with this one. And anyone that has questions, please shoot me an email on venompads.com for any questions regarding that I didn't answer in the video, because I can't necessarily predict every question asked. So just if you have a question, shoot me a question, and I'll be more than happy to shoot you a video on it. Because more than likely, if you have that question, a lot of other people watching the video have the same question. All right, so now the last two are what I call true miter blades for the American market, what they associate as, but they're not that any special different than these. There's certain types of materials out there on the compact surfaces that I found at times this does pretty good. So it's just like, and especially a lot of miter saws, a lot of the saws that are set up as miters kind of use these blades. The first one's the yellow, which I'm redesigning to be a little bit better, which is going to be the next one here. This is a new one that I like the design. I like how it performs a little bit better than the yellow. It's pretty much very similar. So this is more of what I call miter saws, more of a miter saw blade. And also, not to go back, on the purple Tiburon, the one that's not the purple Tiburon, the Venom Rush, purple Venom Rush blade, I make that as small as 6 inches. So a lot of the Purple Rush Venom blades, I have them in all the sizes for the Blue Ripper. I kind of use the Venom Rush for all the Blue Ripper blades, 6 inch, 8 inch, 10 inch, 14. And then this 14 inch blade is very popular on the Blue Ripper saws that are 14 inch. And this one, when I bring it in at 14 inch, will be all, I could recommend for the Blue Ripper too. But this is just a really traditional, known as a miter blade. Is it any better than the other ones? I would say no. It's just a traditional, what guys are used to custom looking at maybe. But it does pretty good on quartzite and some of the other materials. It cuts pretty fast. But I've been really spoiled with the SVB blade, so I don't really use it this much. But I do have customers that like it, so it's a good option. Thank you, and I'm Brent with VenomPads.com.